Mr. Himes, you mentioned your opponent voted to cut taxes. Many economists are saying there's no way to get out of this current financial crisis without raising taxes. What would you do?
I've been very clear on this point. As we go into what is almost certainly a recessionary environment, nobody raises taxes on anything. And I have made a specific proposal for a tax cut to our middle-class families. I happen to believe that the last 8 years have not served our middle-class or working families particularly well. Some folks have done pretty well until perhaps quite recently, but our middle-class and working families have really borne the burden of higher gas prices, higher health insurance, higher education, higher housing prices, and they haven't seen tax relief. I've proposed a package of tax cuts that would offer tax relief to households making under $250,000 a year if they do one of three things that is good for those households and is good for our economy. Educate a child, buy a first home, or just simply save more money. We are going to need to address the deficit. So in the near term, tax cuts are called for. But we need to be very careful how we talk about those tax cuts, the so-called tax cuts, because remember, $10 trillion in debt. Those were credit card expenditures.
Mr. Shays?
My opponent has been very unclear because when he was campaigning during the summer, he said we need to get rid of the so-called Bush tax cuts. Let me tell you what they are. We moved the individual rate from 28 to 25%, from 31 to 28%, 36 to 33, and from 39.6 to 35. He would increase them. The 10% bracket, that would disappear. The child tax credit, that would disappear. The marriage penalty, that would come back in play. The dividends tax reduction, that would come into play. The capital tax rate reduction, that would come into play. The adoptive tax credit, that would disappear. The contribution limits for IRA would go back from $5,000 to $2,000. That's what he said he would do. Now, he talks about a middle tax cut, but the bottom line is this. 5% of the American people pay 50% of the taxes. 50% of the American people pay 96.3% of the taxes. It's very difficult to give a tax cut to people who do not pay taxes. And the astonishing thing is, in this district, we only get back 69 cents for every dollar we get, in spite of the fact the federal government ranks 13% in per capita. We only have 12 states that get more money back than we do. But we are so phenomenally wealthy. What he wants to do is tax our district and send it elsewhere. That 69 cents will go to 50 or even lower